Hey family, welcome back. We're gonna hit you with a part 2 of knowing your self-worth. So the question out here right now is, does being single define your self-worth? Because all of us up here are singles. We're various ages, but we are single. No husband, no wife. So that is the question that we're posing. Does that define who you are? How does that fit in?
I feel like for myself, to my family, it defines my self-worth, okay? Because to me, I'm secure, I'm confident,
Yes.
I'm okay being single, okay? Single ready to mingle, but still okay in my singleness, you know? But to my family, you reach a certain age, you do reach a certain age. Like for myself, I finished grad school, I currently work at a career type job, so they're just like, baby, the only thing left you got to do is get married now. So I'm just like, but I'm trying to find who I am in God, like I'm trying to identify myself, I'm trying to be confident so a man doesn't have to complete me, I'm already whole. Like, don't you understand I'm trying to do the groundwork? But what about your baby though? Like your ovaries don't care about your groundwork, okay? Like, they don't care about that. Time is moving, okay? It's progressing. But my father is a redeemer of time. Yeah, that's good. But, okay, all right, thanks. Thank you for your input, but I'm choosing to follow this path. I'm choosing to follow the path that the Lord has for me, but I feel like it depends on the person. So for yourself, singleness should not define your self-worth. If anything, it should tell you that you have an opportunity. This is a time for you to grow in your self-worth. But when people get around you, they start to speak something in you, and that starts to confuse you, tries to distract you from knowing what you are already confident in your secret place. So,
I love it. Wow.
yeah, so sometimes it depends on who you're around. They define you by your singleness. But personally, I try not to.
I think for me, when I think of singleness defining my self-worth, I wouldn't say that it defines my self-worth, but I do think it definitely plays a big part in it. And I'm all right in saying that and being transparent, because for me, I had to realize when we talk about the people that we have around us, I had so many people, family, but definitely people that I considered friends, who told me, I don't believe that they necessarily meant to be malicious, but basically they're married and I'm not, because they did things right and I didn't. And even though we talk about the secret place where God defined who I was and told me who I was, and he made promises to me concerning the fact that I would be married, that I would have kids of my own, and those sorts of things, and it still hasn't happened. And the older you get, the worse it is, because it's basically like, well, you didn't do this, you're not doing that, and I did this, I did that, and so here I am, and there you are. And so looking at that, how did that play into what I know God told me? Because we don't live in the holies of holies, we live out in the real world. Yes, and so we have to, if we say, well, people say things that doesn't affect us, I didn't think it did, but when I look back over it, after it happened time and time and time again, it did begin to affect me. And it didn't mean that there were things that I needed to work on, and I didn't have anything to work on, because obviously I did and still do. But it's just a matter of God's timing and also being in alignment with his will. Because I'm telling you, a lot of the same people, when I sat back and really looked at it, yeah, they're married, but that's the most they can say. And that's not good. That's not the type of marriage that I want. Paul said that he wished that everybody could be single like him. But if you can't, then go ahead and get married. Why would he say that instead of the other way around? We know that marriage is honorable. So obviously being single is a good definition as well. And maybe there are things that we haven't tapped into being single because we're so concentrated on being married.
Wow. That's so good, Andre.
That's definitely a word, especially as time goes on. Like, you're confident when you're in your 20s, okay? You're still confident in your 30s. You moving on to your 40s, and you start to think like, Lord, I didn't choose to be Abraham, okay? Like, I wanted to be David, like someone quick that got their wife too sweet, So it's just still trying to hold on to what the Lord said as time progresses. And that can build something in you. That builds character, it builds something in you, but still, like, it can wear down on you, it can chip on you. So thank you for being transparent.
Anybody else want to?
It's a deep question. Like my mind's like racing, because it's like, does singleness define me? And I mean, half the time I'm like, well, I thought the point was to be confident in who I am on my own, apart from anybody else. Well, that's not the singleness that you're talking about. right? I think you're talking about like, you know, the fact that I'm not where somebody else is, you know, and me seeing that gap and my allowing that to devalue like who I am. And the fact of the matter is, most of the time it doesn't happen until somebody reminds me, right? And it can be through the polite nudge of, hey, so you done with school, you don't look bad, you have a job, what are you doing, right? That's somebody else defining it. But then the other side of that is, hey, you're single, I'm single, I don't want to be single no more, let's get together.
Right.
And all of a sudden, like, I'm in a relationship, but I'm not in a relationship because that's something I want to do. I'm in a relationship because now I'm just feeling a void for somebody else and vice versa,
That's right.
So like those are the cases where I feel like singleness starts to take over and start defining my self-worth instead. And all of a sudden, because like I wasn't too confident who I was, all of a sudden I'm starting to lend myself to doing other things I probably wouldn't do otherwise.
That's good.
And so, I mean, as far as do I let it happen? I mean, yeah. right. And so, you know, I think again, one is just really acknowledging that and being able to understand that, having some good friends that can call me out for it too. Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, but I'm with you. This is a very loaded question. Does singleness define my self-worth? I don't believe so. I don't know. I feel like I'm on the spectrum where it's like, because I know what God has called me to do and who God has called me to be, I like stay away from a lot of things and people, unfortunately, because I'm like, I can't be just yoked with somebody just to be yoked. Because guess what? Maybe you don't understand God has called me in ministry. Will you be able to handle the kind of prayer life that I have? I'm not even joking about this.
Yes.
Right? This is no joke. Okay? I mean, I'm saving you from yourself. So I'm not saying that I'm some kind of holy person. That's not at all what I'm saying. Is I know what God has called me to do. I know ministry is where God has me. So, like, being careful of who I allow in my circle and being careful to really guard that space in prayer, in purification, sanctification. It's a lifestyle, and I can't just, I'm not waiting for somebody in order for that to happen, right? Those are things that I'm actively doing. You know, I'm not waiting for a husband in order to live a life of sanctification. It's a constant process. Whether I'm single doesn't change. Whether I'm married doesn't change. So I think self-worth is where I stand with the Father, and that's the most important thing to me.
So let me ask this, do people come up to you all and say different things? So Andre mentioned that he gets these comments, you know, but has anyone else experienced that? I think people have kind of stopped asking me that.
There ain't no hope for you, huh? She go!
They just, I mean, literally, like, my family, they don't even say anything anymore. It's so funny.
Like another year. Thanksgiving by yourself. Let me just take the plate away.
They're like, you know they don't ask me, so you bringing somebody to the family dinner, you know, just never ask anymore. But I know that God has intended a husband for me, and I'm definitely waiting on that. I do have some married friends who will say, hey, I'm praying, you know, for your husband to come, because like Tezia, I have ministry on my life, so it just can't be anybody. It just can't be any man, and I'm not just gonna run out and grab somebody because I'm up in age. And so I don't hear it an awful lot now, but I wanna know, do you all hear that?
I'll raise my hand, I hear it all the time.
For me, it's sometimes it's like a space, like, you know, in my mind. If I'm thinking about it, like, a lot, then I'm inclined to hear people ask me about it. I think maybe people ask me about it and I just don't pay attention. It doesn't even ring a bell, because it's not even, like, I'm not like actively waiting and like impatiently waiting. I am waiting secure because I know who my Father is, and I know that He wouldn't lie to me. So I'm not
Yes.
I'm not hearing it. So maybe people are asking, maybe I'm just not hearing it because it's like,
I feel similar. I definitely feel the same way. I can say the security is definitely what you need, especially when they do ask. So I think for myself, like when people do ask, they never like, because I'm still in my 20s, so they're not necessarily pushing me towards marriage, but because I've finished milestones, they think it's just time. Like there's no other step right now but to get married. So I think where I have a problem is when people say it's time to get married, and then they think they know you. So they have people in mind. They're just like, hey, how about this person? How about that person? And because you trust them as family, you trust them as friends, you think that the person that they're offering to you is actually someone that can be a candidate. But when you don't know yourself, you get caught up in that distraction. So I can say, without knowing myself, I have been caught up in the distraction, and then I feel like I wasted time. I wasted time because I didn't stay true to who I was, you know? So when thinking of my singleness and my self-worth, know yourself, your self-worth comes before your singleness, you know? So at times I let my singleness come before my self-worth, so I make decisions based off my loneliness. I make decisions based off the people around me, rather than basing my decisions based off what I know about myself. Like, if I looked at him with the eyes of identity, baby, I ain't got no time for you, okay? But I wasted a whole like 2 months of my life now, so. And I could have been using that. I could have been using that in my prayer closet. So now I know.
Well, I mean, for me, I looked at how many of my friends, and I know a lot of them well, but I looked at, because they're my friends, so the people that I consider my friends, we're not Superman with each other, we're Clark Kent. You know what I mean? She's not, Wonder Woman, she's Diana Prince. So having said that, now that I look at, when I know a lot of them, and I know that yes, they're married, but I know what it takes for some of them to stay that way. And the majority of the time is because they married outside of God's will. And here's the thing, here's the kicker. A lot of them did not marry outside of what we consider the church. You could be unequally yoked inside of the church. And this is what a lot of people don't know. Just because you get a woman, or a man that's saved, you think. So God revealed to me a while ago, because much like Stephen, I go on dates, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, dang, this ain't it either. And and after a while, you're on another one, and you're like, this isn't it either. And then I tell myself, I was like, I'm 45. I said, so maybe I need to just dive in a little deeper. So I'm still like, this ain't it either. So having said that, you have to be honest with yourself, because when you lessen yourself, talking about your self-worth, just to have someone in your life, take someone in your life anywhere you can have them, you pay for that. Your ministry suffers because of it, and there are some people that I know, as much as I love, I know they'll never be where God is calling them to be because of who they're yoked to. They'll never be. And I know that. And I'm not judging them, I'm just saying, and some of them who are honest with me, they say, look, I'm making it work, I'm plugging through, but I know I married the wrong person. I know that. And you don't have a reason necessarily to get divorced, but you still have to understand that you made this mistake. And I'm not judging them, because I realize it's very easy to do. And if you don't think it's easy to do, get in your 40s and be single and see how easy it is. Because you're like, okay, maybe it's me, let's go ahead.
Amen. I don't know, like what you just touched on was just so important. The fact that it is difficult when you marry the wrong person for you to accomplish what the Lord has told you to accomplish. Like, it'll be a lot harder. Even if like you do accomplish it, it'll be a whole lot more harder than it will be. And I think I was just like talking to myself, because I do that sometimes. I was just coming to Jesus with myself about that. Is I don't want to get married today without knowing who I am today, and not being pulled today by God's standards, and get married to someone and then change later. Because myself and God, we're gonna get there, okay? We're gonna get to a place where I believe I should be in Christ. And if I get there after I'm married, then I realize I married the wrong person because I was unwilling to wait. So that's something I just don't wanna do. So thank you for touching on that, because that's exactly how I feel sometimes, is that you moved prematurely. You move prematurely because you're not willing to know yourself first.
Well, I was born on February the 14th, Valentine's Day.
It's cuffing season. It's cuffing season.
And so I get asked. I get asked often enough, but I get asked. And lately over this past year, I kind of I've been looking at it as more of an opportunity to start understanding, okay, so God, why do you have me where I am right now? Okay, God, why am I not seeing who it is I think that I should be seeing right now? Like, I've been praying like a lot more about that and really taking it as this opportunity for God to start speaking a lot more to me. Because like everyone's all kind of hit on, I don't want to put myself in a position where now, instead of me allowing God to direct myself to my wife, I'm allowing my loneliness, I'm allowing my desire to be with somebody else, I'm allowing all these other factors to play in. That's going to ultimately end me up in a marriage that wasn't what God had for me, right? So that said, like lately, to be very blunt and honest, the past, I don't know, 6-9 months, I've just kind of been praying like, okay, well, I'm getting these questions anyways, God, what's up? And so that's what I'm praying about, you know, and I'm kind of just listening, and I'm also learning, okay, well, while I'm here, how do I get comfortable doing just me and not being anxious and knowing how to wait and seek at the same time, right? That's all I got.
That's good, bro.
Amen.
That's good.
Yeah, it's I've been doing the same thing. I'm in a waiting process, so I'm in my early 40s as well, and it's just, you know, like, okay, 20 years ago, I was like, yes, I got time to be married, you know, focusing on other things. And then, you know, time passes by and it's like, okay, God, you haven't forgotten me, right? You know, is this a Sarah moment? You know, but it's all about waiting and then waiting well. So what I've started to do lately was just really pray and tell God my heart and how I'm feeling. And then on top of that, I'm doing other things like one of my friends recommended that I read The Power of a Praying Wife, which is a book that I'm like, well, I'm not married. What do I need to read that for? But knowing those things and being able to pray over those things early before before he finds me, is going to be beneficial in my marriage. So I don't let my singleness define that. What I'm trying to do now is just continually focus on my ministry, focus on what God has called me to do, and you know, my immediate family, you know, mom, people like that, just trying to make sure that I'm living my life to the full. You know, I'm not sitting back crying about not being married. But again, like I said, people are not coming up to me like, why aren't you married? I'm not experiencing that. Not anymore.
Praise God, you're not. I got enough for everybody here. I know it may be about out of time, but you know one thing I thought about that I just wanted to bring up? One of the questions that needs to come up is, what are we doing while we're waiting? And you said that, you know, are we waiting well? And waiting well doesn't just mean rejoicing and praising God. It also means, especially as men, and I appreciate Stephen, you know, Dr. Brown, because he and I talk, and every now and again, usually it's right out there in that vestibule, we have church. And what do we talk about? We talk about what we're doing as men, what are we doing educationally? How are we ordering our finances? You know, are we looking for new employment?
Yes.
Because as men, why is that important to us? Because we're the ones that are supposed to work by the sweat of our brow. And I said that to say that when I look at all of us in here, I see how God is ordering and aligning us to be married, to come into covenant relationship, so that when we come in, we are what's known as interdependent instead of codependent. Because codependent basically says, I suck and you do too, so let's suck together. You know, as opposed to interdependence means I'm whole in who God has it made me. I'm 100% Andre and 100% God in me, you know, and who He called me to be. You're that, and now God is placing us together. So it's we can survive independent of each other, but we choose to come together in a holy covenant, as opposed to I'm lacking and I need you. Because when that happens, you know, two people together, they don't make 100%. You still have some type of fraction, you know, off relationship, and it's never what it should be. It's like oil and water. They're both great properties, but they'll never mix. I don't care what you do. Never.
Shake that thing forever.
Yeah.
It won't stay mixed. Yeah.
I feel like that's a sign of maturity too. So if you wanted to define yourself, like mature should be something that you strive for. So you mentioned of getting your job right, getting your finances right, getting all of the material things right. And some people would use that material things to define themselves, to define their self-worth. Oh, I'm not ready to get married because I haven't made this X amount of dollars. But when it comes to interdependency, like when it comes to being in a complete relationship, you both are bringing something to the table, but you do have to get to a certain level. You don't let that level define you, but understand that to be mature, you have to utilize those things. So, good point.
Yeah, Andre brought up a good point, is you're two whole people. You're not a half a person coming together, and then God surrounds that 100% that you all make. Or yeah, it's 100% because it's two people becoming one. I know it doesn't make sense in math, 1 and 1 is 2, but in this case, 100 and 100 is 100 together. And you work that out, but as single people, you all have explained, I believe, to the community how you all feel, how you all look at things, and I'm sure that there are people that you all out there also feel the same way, and you all have input that you want to give. So please email us or even drop something in the comments, and we'll definitely get back to you if you have questions. So thanks everybody for joining in. We have gotten down to the last 25, or we've spoken for about 25 minutes or so. So I just want to say that I appreciate you all. Thanks for coming out to speak to the community, and we look forward to you all joining us again. Thank you out there for watching. We love you, and we can't wait to do community, do life with you again. Have a good day. We'll talk to you later.